Well, good morning, and welcome back to the toughquestionsforgod.org website. This morning, as you can see, I've had some surgery on my neck, but everything is going well, and I know I've kind of been out of circulation here for about the last 4 weeks. But I want to let you know everything's good. Everything is, back on the mend, and we're just getting back into it right now. So I want to let you know that the Tough Questions for God Ministries, all that we've been doing, whether it was the 15-minute message on Sunday mornings, whether it's the posts that we put on the websites, all of those things will be continuing as of today. So I want to encourage you to join me at toughquestionsforgod.org every Sunday morning and really every day if you want to join with our daily inspirations, our daily devotions. There's a page for that to take a look at, as well as some our podcast and as well as some of our blogs too. You might find interesting. So, toughquestionsforgod.org. Well, today I'm going to start a new series, and I'm going to talk about doubt. Doubt is one of those things that we all deal with from time to time. You can't be a Christian and not deal with doubt. It's just part of our makeup. Because in all honesty, aren't we offered a lot of miraculous things to believe in? When you think about it, death and resurrection and life everlasting and heaven and streets of gold and all of this wonderful stuff. Well, let me start off here this morning with a story here for you. And I'll put it up here on the screen. After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. And there was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven, and going to the tomb, he rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were as white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. And the angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He's not here. He is risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay, and then go quickly and tell the disciples. He is risen from the dead, and he is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. So now I have told you." The scriptures record 13 post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. That's quite a few. And he does all of this to various different people and places before he finally ascends to heaven. And of course, when he goes, he gives them the great commandment, and that is to go into the world and to preach the gospel so that other people might learn, that other people might get involved with the Christian faith and come to a relationship with Christ in order to be saved. But right before the Great Commission, there's a little verse that most people miss. Then the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain where Jesus had told them to go. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. In this new series, we're going to deal with doubt. Have you ever found yourself full of faith, but still having certain doubts? Sometimes we feel so close to God. We know that he's real. We know that he's present. But the doubts of this world, of this culture, and people around, sometimes they cause us to have serious doubts about whether or not we're holding on to the right faith, we're believing in the right things, or we're not. Sometimes people ask questions. And sometimes those are questions that we don't have the answers for. They bring up situations that make God look evil or uninvolved or just not there. And then suddenly we don't have the answers and we look foolish because we don't really quite have all the understanding that they're looking for. Questions arise like, why don't I feel God? Why don't I see God? Why is it that he doesn't answer prayers? Why does God allow bad things to take place? Is God even real? Well, when you start to doubt in the very presence, in the very existence of God, I think that can be a very scary place to be. We want to ask questions and we want to know, we want to grow, we want to be assured of what it is we're believing in, but that's called faith. And we deal with things that lead us away from God many times. Guilt, being ashamed of our behaviors or our actions or some of the things that maybe we've been involved with. Things that take us away from trusting in the sacrifice of God on our behalf. And sometimes there are people, other Christians in the church especially, that appear superior or unwilling. They're inflexible. They're kind of like a stick. They'll bend so far, but then you're going to break it. Well, sometimes I feel like I need to break the stick in order to get the answers to the questions and the doubts and the wonders that I have in my heart. I want you to know, though, that doubts, when they're properly handled, can really be a catalyst to a very strong and growing faith. Your faith is not, you don't arrive. It's not a destination. Your faith is actually a journey. You don't arrive and you don't get you don't graduate, you don't get a certificate. Faith is a way of life. It's a way of trusting in God, who we know in our heart exists, but we don't quite always understand. We don't always see his ways. But faith is a journey. It's a lifelong journey, one that we need to continue to follow, put the effort into, put the resources into. And there's many obstacles that create doubts in our mind as we're growing in our faith. A lot of parents you talk to today, they wonder why their kids, are not as faithful, so to speak, as they are. Well, because of doubts, because maybe they never had the questions in their hearts answered in a way that made sense to them. It's okay to ask questions. It's okay for you and I to have questions in our minds and heart, as long as we just don't sit on them, we do something with them. It's okay for our kids and our loved ones and those around us to have doubts and questions too. And together, hopefully, the environment of our home and of our relationship with these other people is one where those doubts and those questions are welcomed. Because if they're not, are we really sharing the gospel like what Jesus called us to do? Sharing the gospel comes through questioning, comes through faith, comes through those discussions that might be long or they might just be very short ones in a car ride or something like that. Just because somebody has a question or a doubt, it's not a time to panic. It's a time to process. It's a time to think. The church and the home should be an open place, a place of comfort and a place of, safety where people can doubt, where people can question, where people can offer, well, what about this and what about that? And, how's this work and how's that work? And it should be a place where people can struggle and work together, in all of the different aspects of a growing faith. Faith is like a seed. It's got to be nurtured and it takes time to grow, and care must be taken and the right materials and the right environment, and all of those things have to be present. The strongest faith isn't one that never doubts. The strongest faith is a faith that grows through the doubts. Let me get back to the resurrection story here for you for a minute. One of the 12 disciples, Thomas, this comes from the book of John, was not with the others when Jesus came. And they told him, "We've seen the Lord." But Thomas replied, and we all know this story, "I won't believe it unless I see the nails and the wounds in his hands, put my fingers into them, and place my hands into the wounds on his side." Friends, questioning does not make Thomas a bad person. It makes him human. We know him as Doubting Thomas, but Doubting Thomas had valid questions that he needed to have answered. He wanted to understand. He wanted to make sure that he got it right. He was being cautious. And honestly, in those days, there were so many false prophets, so many pagan religions and other things that you could get involved with, and it could dilute, our Christian faith, especially back then. Thomas wanted to get it right. He was banking on Jesus and the miracles of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus. He was banking his whole life and his eternal life on this one man, and he wanted to get it right. Honestly, I respect that. I really do. So then Jesus told them plainly. This is another a time when Thomas kind of demonstrated his faith, not his doubt. He demonstrates his faith. So then Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Let's go to him. And then Thomas said to the rest of the disciples, and he didn't know what was going on, he said, let us also go that we may die with him. You see, he didn't know whether or not, Lazarus is dead. Okay, Jesus said, but does that mean that we're all going to die for our faith? Are we all going to be dying here? What's going on? But he was willing to go to that extent. Don't give Thomas's bad rap. Thomas questioned, and he wanted to get it right. I want to get it right too. 8 days later, this comes from John again. 8 days later, the disciples were together again, and this time Thomas was with them. We know the story. The doors were locked, but suddenly, as before, Jesus was standing among them. Put your hands into the wound on my side, and don't be faithless any longer. Believe. And what does Thomas do? He goes from doubting to exclaiming, to shouting, the Lord, or my Lord and my God, is what he says. Doubting Thomas was a man that simply wanted to get it right, just like you and I. Doubts are part of the way that our faith grows. Those difficult questions that we have, those things that we don't quite understand, are the things that we need to make sure are being addressed on a regular basis, kind of like the seed that's continuing to grow. Ask the questions, spend the time, put forth the effort, read the scriptures, spend time in prayer, spend time meditating on God's word. Go out and walk in the woods and take a look at nature. Do whatever you need to do in order to commune with God and His Spirit, in order to get the questions at hand answered, so that your faith might be a growing faith also. Friends, again, I apologize for the lack of, being here with you over the last 4 weeks. It's been a kind of a difficult journey for me, but we're on the mend. Things are going good, and all of our regular activities will be starting up here again this week. So join me on each Sunday. It will be posted by 8 a.m. for you to watch and enjoy and spend time with whenever during your Sunday mornings. And I just pray and hope that all will be well with you. Thanks, and God bless. Tough Questions for God is a teaching ministry of the Rosebush United Methodist Church, where we challenge our faith with some of the most difficult issues. Tough Questions for God is available on Facebook Live, Sundays at 11:30 a.m., or go on our website at toughquestionsforgod.org and just follow the links on the homepage for YouTube or via podcast. Thanks for joining, and don't forget to like and share. God bless.